Welcome my friends, welcome back to Project TAS. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you've watched any of my previous videos, thank you for returning to my channel. Today we're doing another Blake 7 episode review from Season 2. As always, I will point out that this review will inevitably touch upon certain plot elements of this episode and may even reveal developments for the series of Blake 7 as a whole. So if you haven't seen this episode or anything else in terms of Blake 7, a huge spoiler alert is in order in case you wish to do a bit of Blake 7 catch up prior to watching this review. You have been warned. Right, let's get to it, shall we? I can't keep my rants under control, can I? Technically my Gambit one was a lot shorter than my Voice from the Past moan, but still. Voice from the Past had a mismatched plot. Gambit had a mismatched theme and too much plot. Here we have The Keeper, and this one doesn't have nearly enough plot. And it's highly irritating as well. These large cavemen with yellow skin and long Viking hair, who look like extras from Braveheart suffering with jaundice, have caught Villa and Jenna. Blake is trying to find this brain print thing that Dockley told him about in Gambit, Avon is trying to take out pursuit ships in orbit above, and Callie is trying not to. That's the plot. We have to go through this tedious routine of checking all the amulets that the royal family have, only to find that Travis has already nicked it. The brain print has the location of Star 1 on it in some fashion. As luck would have it, and for reasons never adequately explained, it turns out that the cyber surgeon Lurgan, in what is technically an act of grievous assault, and something I would hope that a surgeon would never do, planted Star 1's location on the Charles Fool's brain, which he recites when the trigger phrase is activated.
He said a fool knows everything and nothing. A fool knows everything and nothing.
The location of Star 1 is at grid reference C17320 in the 11th sector.
Why he did this, why the True Shao allowed it to happen, and why Lurgan gave the trigger phrase to a man who's obviously not going to live much longer is a mystery. But that really is the plot. Oh, and there's all this really embarrassing bit about the Shao getting wood for Jenna and wanting to pair bond with her, which apparently she'll do whether she wants to or not. Isn't that nice? I watched this episode for the first time when I was very young, probably around 12 at the time. My two younger sisters really liked it because they love seeing Villa as the fool. I'm afraid that's about as redeeming as this episode gets. It has Travis and Servalan in it, and neither of them needed to be. Yes, Travis off-inches the brain print, but he could have done that before they showed up. It's another unfortunate example of how low Croucher's take on Travis is getting. His completely unnecessary barking of some of his lines is getting tiresome.
It's a chance we'll have to take unless you're prepared to risk Blake getting to the secret before we do. Well?
All right. How long?
3 hours.
That long?
You could have the secret by then. It has to be one of those two. The chief or his sister. Don't you trust me?
His supposedly malicious sniding against Villa and Jenna in front of Gola would feel poor in a pantomime.
You know these people.
Yes, so Charles. They are enemies of myself, of Servalan, and also of Lurgan, who mended your wound and took away the terrible pains.
Truly a magician, that Lurgan. You say these people are his enemies.
They pursue him to kill him.
We can only be glad that his appearance in this episode is so much shorter than the previous installment. I hate saying this about Croucher. I know that he is a perfectly fine actor, just not for this part. As I alluded to in my previous review for Gambit, it could be that for half of the episodes he appears in, not this one though, he was directed by George Spenton Foster, a man who, for whatever reason, really didn't like Croucher, and this was almost certainly reflected in his performance. Greif had total control over his portrayal of Travis, and I think the writing and direction very much reflected this. With Croucher, however, he seems somewhat aimless, and again, I don't know if this is really his fault. But he seems to be forcing out the emotion, which is why his portrayal is perhaps more shouty. Season 2's Travis, it just isn't Travis. Even when he's meant to be a fugitive, a man with his own agenda, his own ambition, his own purpose, he lacks presence and depth to be taken as seriously as he should be, and it isn't long before he and Servalan are back together as bosom baddies anyway. The lack of depth might be more indicative of the writing though. As I said previously, I don't know how much better Greif could have done with the material on hand. You look at the lines that are written for Travis in Season 2 and try to imagine Greif saying them. it still doesn't work in my opinion. Alternatively, imagine Croucher saying Travis's line from Season 1. I can see him doing better with those scripts than the Season 2 lines. No, he still may not read them as well as Greef, but I can see his performance improving with the superior material. No, I am not saying that the scripts are that dire from Season 2, but let's look at the last 6 episodes. If we go by my ratings, there have been 2 good to mediocre episodes and 4 bad ones. Out of those 6, guess which 4 episodes Travis was in? This is my point. These 4 episodes take up half of the 8 episodes he's in. He also appeared in Weapon, which I was less than impressed by. Pressure Point was a great episode, but I don't know if that was down to Travis. This leaves him with Trial and Star 1. Unfortunately, this is where my theory about better material falls flat. In Trial, he overacts and shouts a lot, and the number of lines he has in Star 1 is less than a dozen. As I say, I don't hold Croucher entirely responsible for this. It just seems odd that as the episodes go on and we get further into the series, his performance becomes flatter and less impressive as we go on. It's just a shame. I can't purely blame Croucher for the downturn in Travis. As I said before many times, the writers have clearly lost their way with him, making him a shouty trooper instead of the calculating officer we knew him to be. But I think I've made it obvious as to which Travis I prefer. In Season 1, Travis was written with a more Shakespearean motif in mind. In Season 2, he became more soap opera. Both actors obliged as required. But I'm meant to be talking about The Keeper, and as brief as it was, I believe I already have. There really is nothing more to this episode outside of what I've already said. We are seriously waiting for the reveal, and the fact that that doesn't happen until the very end means the viewer is put through a laborious 50 minutes. Similar to Gambit, our heroes are somewhat secondary in this plot. In and out of the cell go Villa and the Fool. Cackle, cackle, cackle goes the balmy old witch sister. Barely in it at all is Rog Blake. Smiling fakely at Gola while avoiding pair bonding is Jenna. And nothing to do except foolishly chase after a pursuit ship go Avon and Callie. On the subject of Jenna, if anyone was still wondering as to what finally pushed Sally Knyvette into leaving the show after only 2 seasons, I don't think you have to look far beyond this episode. The actors do their best, but none of the other guest characters are remotely interesting enough to hold one's attention or mean anything when they bite the dust, as thankfully the majority of them do, and both Travis and Servalan's presence are completely unnecessary. The Goths are poorly acted, and none of them are characters we are particularly interested in or sympathetic with. Seeing them die one by one isn't surprising, and very much come down to being so what moments. I wish I could say more about this episode, but there's so little in it. Checking 4 amulets should take 5 minutes in theory. It's stretched to 50, and the stretch marks show. There will be some who find this warrior concept and idea rather engaging, and others, like my sisters, will find the charm and humour in a relatively harmless episode. I can't deny that the costumes and the production design of the tents is actually quite well done, and I admire the writers for the fact they tried to make it a more interesting, out there episode than anything else we've seen before. It's not the first time Blake 7 has tried to do something different with its setting and episode theme. The penal colony of Cygnus Alpha was of course unlike any other Federation place we could have imagined, and of course that episode has religious themes and underlying meaning that go beyond just the basic narrative. As someone who's now had a chance to follow the saga chronologically, however, and knows what a big deal this section should be, I can only be massively disappointed. No aim, no direction. The point of the big yellow warriors, who seem more suited to a Simpsons episode about medieval times, is seen as hopefully being enough to detract from its lack of a story, but it's not. Usually I like to petulantly poke at the plot holes, the inconsistencies, the contradictions. There aren't really that many holes to poke at because the story is that light. There isn't enough story here to have that many errors contained in it. But that's how we end the search for Star 1. This is how they find Star 1. 3 episodes which seriously balance out as ill-conceived, far below average filler. Say what you want about Terry Nation grabbing every plot strand he could to finish off Series 1, at least you could sense some sort of effort was being made there. Here there's no polish, no refinement, and Keeper is particularly guilty of this. A series arc that amounted to playing for time. Not good enough.
189, standard by 10. And on with luck to Star 1.
Jenna's line, the last one of the episode, reflects how I've been feeling. With luck, we can move on to Star 1 and leave this dross that the writers have used to bide their time behind us forever. That concludes my review on The Keeper. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, please share this video, please subscribe to my channel, and please feel free to check out my other Blake 7 episode reviews. And I shall be issuing pair bonding panic alarms to anyone who wants them. Cheerio.
Gula!